Pelosi has created a sham process. Unless Speaker Pelosi reverses course and seats all 5 Republicans, we will not participate.
House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy is pulling all of his GOP selections for the January 6th Select Committee after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi rejected 2 of them. In a statement, Pelosi says her decision to reject Representatives Jim Jordan and Jim Banks was, quote, with respect for the integrity of the investigation, with an insistence on the truth, and with concern about statements made and actions taken by these members. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Leanne Caldwell joins me now. Leanne, Pelosi also said the Democrats in her caucus had raised specific objections to Jordan and Banks. What were those objections? I mean, we know that particularly Jordan has been very outspoken about this.
Yeah, both of them sure have. But what gave us the biggest clue is Representative Liz Cheney, the lone Republican remaining on this select committee. She spoke to reporters outside of the Capitol just a few moments ago, and she said that Representative Jordan is a material witness. Now, the reason she said that is because there are reports that he met or spoke with former President Donald Trump on January 6th, and that's also an indication of where the select committee might go, that they actually might call Jim Jordan to testify. And as far as Representative Banks is concerned, the members of the Democratic Party were concerned about comments he's made, statements he made, including a statement that he made after he was appointed to this committee by McCarthy just a couple of days ago, when he talked about this just being an exercise of the authoritarian left. And so he seemed to be making a mockery of it and being not a constructive member, and that concerned a lot of these members, Lindsay.
Well, there are reports also that Cheney and Jordan kind of sparred during the whole insurrection, with Cheney telling Jordan, you did this. But Leanne, McCarthy also going after Nancy Pelosi for her decision. What else did he say in their news conference?
Yeah, he sure did. He said that Speaker Pelosi is ruining the conference, or ruining the Congress, I should say. Let's listen to his own words, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
House Democrats must answer this question. Why are you allowing a lame duck speaker to destroy this institution? This is the people's house, not Pelosi's house. I may object to the people that she put on the committee, but I respect her right to do it, just as every leader has done before.
Well, Leader McCarthy says that his members are going to do their own investigation into January 6th. He says that he's interested in why the Capitol Police were overrun and why the building was broken into, essentially. But he's also giving a lot of insinuation that Speaker Pelosi had a role on that day, wondering why what her role was in allowing the National Guard and talking about security specifically on that day. Those are things that the Speaker's office has adamantly rejected, and pointed out that Leader McConnell at the time had the exact same role as far as security is concerned on that day than Speaker Pelosi. So while this select committee is not going to move forward, most likely with these 5 Republicans, it's still going to be a very, very controversial topic, and something that Republicans are going to continue to try to attack, but from the outside now, not as being a part of it.
Leanne, I have a quick follow-up to that. I mean, we just heard McCarthy saying he respects that Pelosi has the right to appoint who she wants on the committee, but then he doesn't respect the right that she has to veto any of his picks.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying. And she has that right. She wrote that in the legislation that the Congress passed in the creation of this select committee. And now you can back up. And this is a direct response to Republicans rejecting the creation of a nonpartisan commission. And now what they've gotten is an partisan select committee, Lindsay.
There's also some big news on infrastructure. Senate Republicans striking down that procedural vote to begin debating that package, the bill at least, which is still incomplete. Now this procedural vote has failed. What's next? What's next for Majority Leader Schumer?
Yeah, we're expected to hear from Leader Schumer on the Senate floor any moment now, where we hope that he's going to lay out his next steps. But he's indicated that the bipartisan bill is not dead. He's not that he will bring this up again, perhaps as early as Monday. He reserves the right to do it, and the process allows him to do that. Now, we just got a statement from the group of bipartisan negotiators, and they say that they remain confident that a deal is within reach. And that was part of the problem, that Democrats were starting to not trust the Republicans in this bipartisan group, thinking that they're just trying to stretch on these negotiations and never really come to an agreement. Now, this statement gives an indication that they are close, that they're almost there, and that they are pushing for perhaps a vote to open this process again on Monday. Lindsay.
And so it continues. All right, Leanne Caldwell, thanks so much.
Yep.
President Biden is in Ohio today for the latest stop on his infrastructure roadshow. He's going to tour a local union training center in Cincinnati, talking about his Build Back Better agenda and how it will create good-paying union jobs. NBC News White House correspondent Mike Memley is in Cincinnati traveling with the president. So, Mike, Biden's third visit to the Buckeye State, it comes as we just heard that first procedural infrastructure vote in the Senate failed. Is the White House calling this a setback?
Well, what the White House has been saying is that they supported Senator Schumer's strategy of setting this initial vote. They know that there were some final details still to be worked out by this bipartisan group, and hope that the deadline would sort of force an outcome. But it sounds like at this stage, the senators in that bipartisan group are preparing to move ahead, still say that they're on track to get this done in the near future. And so we just heard a few minutes ago, in fact, from the White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki speaking with reporters on Air Force One as the president's coming here to Cincinnati, really minimizing today's vote. It was just one procedural vote of many votes to come, and they still believe they're on track. But it is significant that the president on this day, with at least an initial important vote, wasn't planning to stick around in Washington. He is coming here to continue to promote this bipartisan deal, but also his broader agenda among the general public, both here on the ground in a very important political state, but in a nationally televised town hall. This is a White House that is always trying to sort of fly at 30,000 feet and not necessarily get too dirty in the congressional shenanigans that are playing out today.
Well, I'm going to ask you about those congressional shenanigans, because the White House is also responding to this whole saga of Speaker Pelosi blocking two of McCarthy's picks for the January 6th commission. What are they saying?
Yeah, we got a statement from the White House just a short time after we heard from the speaker with that announcement. Mike Wynn, a White House spokesperson, saying essentially that the White House continues to believe, and the president continues to believe, that the shameful events of January 6th deserve a full, transparent, and independent investigation, going on to say that the president supports Speaker Pelosi in her ability to lead just that kind of investigation. It really is significant when you consider that this president could have established his own presidential committee investigation to investigate January 6th. But as many areas as there's deep collaboration between the White House and members of Congress and the leadership in Congress, this is an area that the White House has been very deferential to the speaker, letting her set the table here. I think you will hear more from the president about this tonight. It's likely to be one of the topics that comes up during his town hall meeting. And we know he hasn't minced words in the past about what we saw on January 6th and the larger framing of the idea of a battle for the soul of America here, and January 6th being a very real setback to that.
Mike, you said that the administration likes to stay 30,000 feet above. We're only 6 months into the term, but you know they are already looking ahead to the midterms, and you have some exclusive new reporting on their strategy for 2022. So what are they focusing on?
Yeah, I spoke with the White House's political director, Emmy Ruiz, and one of the first interviews that she's done sort of to look ahead to the midterms. And it's been very conspicuous, Lindsay, as we know. The president obviously coming to Ohio, as I mentioned today, a very significant state. Just a few weeks ago, he was in a battleground district in Illinois. Another week, a battleground district in Wisconsin. And what Ruiz said is that they have these very real partnerships with members of Congress, with mayors, with governors. It's all about what, as she put it, good policy and good governance leading to good politics. And their view of the president, who, when he was vice president in 2010 and 2014, and also as a former vice president, private citizen in 2018, was one of the national Democrats who was most heavily invested in campaigning with a lot of these swing district and vulnerable Democrats is that he knows his agenda is really on the line if Democrats don't hold the House, don't keep that narrowest, and they obviously want to build on that majority in the Senate for the second 2 years of his term. And so that's really what the White House has been doing all of its work here, promoting its own agenda, but trying to do so in a way that vulnerable Democrats across the country can run on that agenda and talk to the voters about what their policies in Washington are doing to translate in everyday life back at home.
I encourage everybody to read that article on NBCnews.com. Mike Memoli, thanks so much. Some top Republicans on Capitol Hill are shifting their messaging about coronavirus vaccines. Congressman Steve Scalise, the #2 House Republican, getting his first shot on Sunday after delaying it for months.
I took it and I wanted to show the picture to just encourage people. You know, government shouldn't be mandating it or trying to shame people. We should be getting the facts out there and encouraging people to take it. And if they have hesitation, talk to your doctor.
NBC News reporter and producer Julie Sturkin joins me now from Capitol Hill. So, Julie, Congressman Scalise, he says the Delta variant is one of the reasons he got the vaccine. How much of an influence does he have? And are other top Republicans changing their tune as well?
Yeah, Lindsay. So as you mentioned, Congressman Steve Scalise, the #2 Republican in the House, he has a lot of influence, as you can imagine, especially on vaccine hesitancy. And he's been someone reporters have been chasing around the halls the last few months since all members of Congress became eligible for the vaccine back in December. He finally said this week, hey, I got my first dose on Sunday, and it's because of the Delta variant, which is spreading like wildfire across the country. In fact, 97% of hospitalizations in the country for COVID patients are for unvaccinated patients. And Minority Leader McConnell over here in the Senate, obviously no stranger to this topic. He's been very vocal on mask wearing and encouraging vaccines. Here's what he said on Tuesday when he opened his press conference. Take a listen.
These shots need to get in everybody's arm as rapidly as possible, or we're going to be back in a situation in the fall that we don't yearn for, that we went through last year. This is not complicated. 97% of the people who are in the hospital now for COVID are unvaccinated. So if there's anybody out there willing to listen, get vaccinated.
Now, McConnell has been vocal, like I said, on mask wearing and on getting the vaccine, even splitting from the White House when former President Trump was in office. He's been doing that back home in Kentucky and here in Washington, and he thought it was so important that he opened his weekly press conference on Tuesday with that message, get your shot. And it came, by the way, after Sean Hannity on Fox News the night before changed his tune and it signaled kind of a whole tonal shift with conservative media and with lawmakers on Capitol Hill who have been hesitant to embrace the vaccine, saying, listen, get your shot. The Delta variant is serious. We don't want to see the country shut down again. Lindsay?
Yeah, but then on the flip side, there are still a large number of Republicans who aren't pushing back against this hesitancy. I mean, let's show you this. This is from the New York Times. Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville said skeptics would not get their shots until this administration acknowledges the efforts of the last one. Kansas Senator Roger Marshall pointing the finger at White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki and Dr. Fauci, saying, quote, every time Jen Psaki opens her mouth or Dr. Fauci opens his mouth, 10,000 more people say, I'm never going to get the vaccine. Julie, are they just adding fuel to the fire here?
Yeah, Lindsay, listen, there's certainly been a little bit of both sidesing it here from Republicans on Capitol Hill. Even this week when I spoke to them, Senator Rubio, for example, saying it's not just Republicans, it's not just conservatives. Senator Tommy Tuberville, you pointed out right there with his tweet. But I will note on his part, you have to peel back the layers here a little bit because Tommy Tuberville represents a state, Alabama, that has excruciatingly low vaccine rates among adults, 30%. That's way below the national average. He actually tweeted today an article from an Alabama newspaper with a heartbreaking case saying that COVID patients there just have nothing left. They are dying. It's too late for them. And he actually said, let me read for you here. He said, this is heartbreaking. Getting the COVID vaccine only takes a few minutes. It's effective, safe, and doesn't cost you a dime. I got mine, and I encourage you to talk to your doctor about yours. That's a message we're hearing from other senators like Senator Braun from Indiana, who told our colleague Garrett Haake yesterday that he's encouraging people to get the vaccine, even though he's been avoiding fighting us for months on his vaccination status. So you're definitely seeing a tonal shift here, and it's because those lawmakers represent states where their population and their voters there are falling behind, and it's becoming really, really dangerous, Lindsay.
And I wonder how many minds are going to be changed after reading that article, because it was an emotional, heavy read. Julie, you mentioned some conservative media hosts, for example, Sean Hannity, changing their tune. But still, there's a lot of mixed messaging coming from other hosts. What are Republican senators telling you about these media outlets and the misinformation out there?
Yeah, Lindsay, I actually was in Utah last week where I asked that question to Republicans there because it's one of the rural red states that's really low on vaccination rates. And the kids I spoke to there, I mean, under 27, prime target of the federal government now to get that shot. They said they've been confused since the Trump administration, and conservative media outlets are certainly amplifying that message not to get the shot, that it's about personal liberty. Well, I spoke to lawmakers on the right side of the aisle who said that it may be about personal liberty, but it's also about personal responsibility. Take a listen to what Senators Cassidy and Romney told me when I posed them this question yesterday.
I am very concerned about vaccine hesitancy among anybody. Republicans, as it turns out, are the most hesitant group. So that's the group to which we must be most concerned.
If you hear things from conservative media that suggest it's dangerous to get a vaccine, you're not being served well by that media. And unfortunately, I think there are a lot of people whose lives are being changed very much for the negative by fear of something which is nowhere near as dangerous as not taking the vaccine.
Yeah, and Lindsay, most notably, McConnell on Tuesday at the end of his press conference was actually asked about conservative media changing their tune and whether this affected Republicans from getting the vaccine. And he said, basically, ignore them. Don't listen to that information. Listen to our nation's top doctors like Dr. Fauci, who testified on the Hill here yesterday, and just continue to listen to that information from people who know what they're talking about. Lindsay?
Julie, do you get the sense that that message is too little too late?
Yeah, it's a good question. As the Delta variant spreads, we already see mask wearing increasing here on the Hill, and I'm sure in other parts of the country. I was taken aback by that when I walked in this morning. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, members of the press here, scared really that not only is the country going to shut down again, but that they're going to see more people being hospitalized, people who can't get the vaccine for medical reasons. And it's really a shame, they tell me. So, Lindsay, we just have to keep our eyes peeled and just see what happens here in the next few weeks and if those vaccines increase.
Julie Sirkin, thank you for your reporting.
Thank you.
Let's go to NBC News Now correspondent Isa Gutierrez. She's following the latest headlines from NBCnews.com. Hey, Isa.
Hey, Lindsay, we're going to start in California today, where a couple has been charged with involuntary manslaughter after its gender reveal party allegedly sparked a wildfire that left one firefighter dead. The fire was started by a smoke bomb. They're being charged with 29 other counts. U.S. life expectancy plunging. It's the largest one-year drop since World War II. The CDC saying American life expectancy is now a year and a half shorter, largely in part to drug overdoses and the pandemic. COVID deaths contributed to almost 75% of the decrease. Parts of China's central Henan province are underwater and at least 25 people are dead after the region experienced some of its worst rainfall in 1,000 years. More than 1 million people have been impacted and 7 people are reported missing. The region has already met its yearly average rainfall, but is expected to get even more rain over the next 3 days. And 4-time gold medalist Sue Bird and infielder for the Miami Marlins Eddie Alvarez are representing Team USA as flag bearers at the Tokyo Olympics opening ceremony this Friday. It's the first year where there will be 2 flag bearers per nation due to a recent policy change prompted by the International Olympics Committee to encourage nations to choose 1 male and 1 female athlete to promote gender equality. And finally, Google Maps is getting an upgrade that's sure to make users heading back into the office during a pandemic feel safer. The new feature will show you how packed your train is, allowing you to avoid crowds. Google says this tool will be available in 10,000 cities across 100 countries, and some commuters will even have the option to see which cars are more packed than others. Lindsay, that's something that I will definitely be using before I get on the New York City subway.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the train car makes sense, but realistically, are we going to be late to work and wait for the next train if it's really crowded? I don't know. I'd probably still just jump on that train. We'll see. Issa, thank you.
That's fair. We're used to being sardined together on those trains here in the city.
Yeah, you still have to wear those masks, too. Issa, thanks. So will they or won't they? The Tokyo Olympics chief not ruling out a last-minute cancellation of the games over COVID concerns. NBC News senior national correspondent Tom Yamas is in Tokyo.
Lindsay, the Tokyo Games have officially started, and Team USA now in the win column, though the U.S. women's soccer team had a rough outing. This has news of another infection hitting Team USA, this time beach volleyball. And you have to understand here, the athletes are under two types of pressure, the pressure to win and the pressure to stay safe and healthy.
The Tokyo Games have begun, and Team USA tasting victory, but also feeling defeat.
Jakobsen, another cross, near post, there's the opener.
The U.S. women's soccer team, defending World Cup champs, led by Megan Rapinoe, losing to arch-rival Sweden.
The throw to the plate, Ottawa score.
But in softball, Team USA beating Italy 2-0. The sport back in the Olympics for the first time since 2008.
I think we were all just excited and honored, basically, to be taking the field. We weren't sure this day was really going to come.
We're also getting a sneak peek at the opening ceremony. Japanese jets rehearsing a flyover high above the National Stadium, which, like all venues in Tokyo, will not have spectators. The Olympics are being treated differently. There are still crowds in busy areas like Shibuya. Trains all over the city are packed, and fans can still go to baseball games here. I asked Tokyo's governor why spectators weren't allowed at the Olympics, showing her all the fans at a recent baseball game.
Why can people go to the baseball game, but they can't go to the Olympics?
The Olympics is not a local game. It's an international game. Therefore, the medical sector has asked us not to have spectators due to there being more passionate cheering and more...
The pandemic hitting Team USA just before the games. In basketball, Bradley Beal and Katie Lou Samuelson. Tennis star Coco Gauff. Gymnast Kara Aker, all testing positive for COVID. And now, Team USA is losing another key athlete who also tested positive. Beach volleyball player Taylor Crabb. Our Los Angeles station KNBC reporting Crabb's brother says he's fine and healthy and should be allowed to play. But the rules at the Tokyo Games are clear. A positive test means immediate isolation.
The head of the Olympics here in Japan says there's still a chance all the events could be canceled if there's a spike in cases, but he says they are focused on delivering a successful games. We've also learned that Brisbane in Australia will be the host city for the Summer Games in 2032. So it's going to go Tokyo, Paris, Los Angeles, and now Brisbane. Lindsay?
And our parent company, NBC Universal, owns the U.S. media rights to the upcoming Olympics. Back here in the U.S., COVID cases are spiking, and hospitals are seeing an uptick in sick patients. It's reminiscent of last year, but the difference this time, the patients are younger. NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber is at Lexington Medical Center in West Columbia, South Carolina. Ellison, last summer you visited the same hospital. It was hit hard by COVID. 1 year later, what's changed and what's the same?
Yeah, I mean, this hospital, we were here almost exactly 1 year ago. They had a designated COVID ICU ward. They were able to officially close it about 4 months ago, but now they're having discussions about whether or not they should bring it back. The biggest difference looking at patients is their age. What's worrying doctors right now, though, is how quickly they're seeing these patients come in, particularly those who are in intensive care. Last week on Monday, they did not have a single COVID patient in the ICU here. 1 week later, they had 8. When we were on the floor yesterday, they brought a 9th patient in as we were standing there. They told us 8 out of 9 had been on a ventilator at some point in time. All but one of them were unvaccinated. One of the first patients we saw when we walked into that area was a 26-year-old man who was on a ventilator. He was also getting a plasma exchange treatment because doctors said he had multiple organs failing. Across the hall from him, there was a patient who was in his 40s. Right next to him, there was a patient in his 30s. Doctors we've spoken to, they say that the patients they're seeing right now among those who are unvaccinated are a lot younger, and they also don't have really any pre-existing conditions or comorbidities that typically would make them more susceptible to a severe case of COVID-19. Some patients, not all of them, are considered medically obese, but the ICU doctor we spoke to, he said the vast majority do not have any pre-existing health conditions. The only thing they have in common is that they're unvaccinated.
Wow. And how do healthcare workers feel about this setback? I mean, day in, day out, they've been going into work. Now we have something preventable here, right? We have the vaccine, and yet they're still seeing people who didn't take it, and they're trying to save their lives.
I mean, they're frustrated. They feel like it doesn't have to be like it is right now because, as you said, there is a tool, vaccines, that they believe can prevent a lot of this. They have 20 patients in this hospital system-wide, at least as of yesterday evening. All but 3 are unvaccinated. Listen to what one doctor told us.
I think we've seen how bad this can be. We've seen the effect on people and families. We've seen the effect on the community in every way. And it's, and none of us want to get back there.
The numbers, they are not nearly what they were at the peak last summer, but the concern is because they seem to be rising so quickly in terms of hospitalizations that we could be on a path where if something doesn't change in the community, be it more people wearing masks or more people deciding to get vaccinated, that they could end up exactly where they were 1 year ago. Lindsay?
Well, and you spoke with some patients who were in the hospital with COVID here. How are they doing? And I'm not sure if you asked or whether they told you whether they were vaccinated, but what's their message?
Yeah, they did. So we actually spoke to one person who spent nearly 2 months in this hospital, about 2 weeks of it in ICU. He was on a ventilator. He says that his family was told that they should be considering funeral arrangements because he might not survive. He said he was eligible to get vaccinated very early in the year, but he decided not to because he was a little nervous, a little worried that it was such a new vaccine, and he didn't feel like he really needed it. He's only 40 years old. We spoke to him at his home. He's back home now, but still on an oxygen tank. This is what he told us about his experience and what he hopes other people will learn from him.
Were you able to breathe on your own?
Not at first. They had to turn me on my stomach. I think it was like 3 times. Cause like the cold and the blood was filling up in my lungs. That's when they put me on the ventilator. I might have been already on the ventilator. I don't know, man. I was just so out of it.
It's a miracle you survived, do you think?
Oh yeah, it is. I would tell them, like, yeah, go ahead and get the vaccination, cause the COVID is for real. Like, it had me on my dying bed, and I didn't know whether I was gonna make it back or not.
We had plans to speak to one woman in her early 30s who was hospitalized right now. She was unvaccinated, and she'd agreed to speak to us, but then her blood oxygen levels started dropping, and her doctors said she was no longer stable, so she wasn't able to speak with us. Lindsay?
Wow, Ellison, that is very hard to hear. Quite the reality check. All right, Ellison Barber, thanks for your reporting. The Biden administration is rethinking its plan, to lift a Trump-era COVID-19 order, which blocks migrants from crossing the border to seek asylum. The target date to lift the order is at the end of the month, but both COVID cases and border crossings are surging in the U.S. Let's bring in NBC News Justice correspondent Julia Ainsley. So, Julia, this policy, it's known as Title 42. It was in place under former President Trump in March of last year. Explain to us what this order is and why President Biden is rethinking plans to get rid of it.
Well, the plan, yes, went into effect in the very early days of the pandemic. It's a CDC order that basically stopped all immigration across land borders because of the understanding that those people a lot of times have to be kept in detention, and those are congregate settings, which, of course, we know are some of the major spreaders of COVID-19. So there wasn't as much fuss when it was first put into place, although some people, of course, did say it was a way to advance President Trump's agenda. Then in Hunter Biden in January, he changed it so that unaccompanied children could come in, but families and single adults, by and large, were still kept out of the country. In fact, just since October, over 750,000 immigrants have been stopped from entering the United States under this order known as Title 42. But advocates have said, when will it end? What is the benchmark? Is it number of cases in the U.S.? Is it number of people vaccinated? And they haven't really gotten real evidence or real benchmarks from the government to show that there is any indication that they may actually have a timetable for when to bring this down, until we had heard July 31st. That was the date, but now we are reporting from 3 sources familiar that date is now in flux and may change.
And Julia, last month, Border Patrol expelled, let me get the number here right, more than 55,000 parents and children who tried to cross the border together. Tell us about the current situation there.
That's right. So some families are able to come in kind of given whether they enter in the right place at the right time. It's kind of this lottery system right now, just depending on whether or not the United States has the capacity to take in certain people. But many, as you said, 55,000 were sent back into Mexico. Overall, the numbers trying to cross the border in June were as high as they've been since March of 2000. So a 21-year high. But a big reason why they may keep this in place is not only those numbers are going up, we also have the Delta variant, and advocates say that they may be caving to political pressure as Republican senators have written DHS not to repeal this order, and as the Attorney General in Texas has filed for a preliminary injunction to keep even the unaccompanied children from coming in. So a lot of pressure on the administration right now, a lot of reasons why they may now wait and do this at another time.
All right, Julia Ainsley, thank you so much. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and Joint Chiefs Chairman General Mark Milley spoke with reporters at the Pentagon today. And this is the first time we've heard from Milley since those stunning excerpts from a new book by 2 Washington Post reporters were released. And they report Milley feared former President Trump would attempt a coup after the election. NBC News has not independently confirmed that reporting. NBC News Pentagon correspondent Courtney Kube joins me now. So, Courtney, before a spokesman for Milley had said no comment to the book, did General Milley say anything about the claims today?
He said a little bit more. I mean, we weren't expecting him to come out and take ownership of these quotes or any of these anecdotes that are in the books. We were expecting him just to have a canned answer. So he went a little bit further than that. I was actually surprised. While he did not acknowledge that any of the quotes or anecdotes were actually from him or confirm any of them to be true, he did specifically say that, addressing the overall allegations from the book, that he maintains that the military, and specifically the chairman of the Joint Chiefs himself and the other members of the Joint Chiefs, that they did not violate their constitutional oath and that they remained apolitical. And he spoke very forcefully. I think we have that sound here.
I want you to know, and I want everyone to know, I want America to know, that the United States military is an apolitical institution. We were then, we are now. And our oath is to the Constitution, not to any individual at all. And the military did not and will not and should not ever get involved in domestic politics. We don't arbitrate elections. That's the job of the judiciary and the legislature and the American people. It is not the job of the U.S. military. We stayed out of politics. We're an apolitical institution.
So an apolitical institution, I mean, that's something that we've been hearing from General Milley for months. You'll recall, of course, last summer when he made that walk across Lafayette Square, and then he came out and apologized and said it was inappropriate for him to be here or for him to be there. I don't anticipate that we'll hear something like that from these comments in the book, that he will apologize for any of these alleged quotes that he's allegedly has said in these meetings and at the time. But, I tried to press him on that at this briefing today, because there are some people who say that if these quotes are correct that are attributed to him, that he really is drawing the military more into a political space than any of his predecessors ever had. And there's concern that once you get into a more political place, that it may be difficult to draw the military back out of it.
So you pushed him on that. What did he say?
He would not touch it. He would not go further. He just maintained that, in fact, the military remains apolitical, and that will be his view. And I even said, what do you say to the rank and file who may read these quotes and say, well, the chairman is pushing into a political space. Why can I not? And he just wouldn't touch it.
All right, Courtney Kube, thanks for trying.
Yeah, thanks.
The pandemic is changing the way Americans shop for food, with many opting to get delivery instead of heading to the store. And the next big thing might be drones or robots dropping off your goods. NBC News investigative and consumer correspondent Vicki Nguyen got an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at the future of grocery shopping at Kroger's robotic fulfillment warehouse.
For many, this is what grocery shopping looked like over the past year. Companies like Instacart, Fresh Direct, and Amazon bringing supplies right to your front door. Even traditional grocery chains stepped up their services. Monthly grocery delivery sales increased 380% from $500 million before the pandemic to $2.4 billion in May.
To keep up with the exploding demand, Kroger, the nation's largest grocery chain, is building high-tech fulfillment centers across the country, like this one here in Ohio. And for the very first time, our cameras are getting exclusive access to show you how they're changing the way we shop for groceries.
The facility is called The Hive, and General Manager Matthew Davis showed us what's behind closed doors.
Welcome to The Hive.
Wow, this is incredible.
Inside, 800 robots zip around this grid, packing up to 20,000 online orders daily for delivery to anyone within a 90-mile radius.
So I see them up on this level, but where are they being filled?
What you don't see underneath is stacked all the way from the floor to the ceiling are 21 levels of totes. In those totes are products ranging from bread, apples, diapers, anything that you could want.
The robots can pick and pack a family's entire order in 5 to 10 minutes.
Everything that you do walking up a grocery store, all of that is being maintained and happening through these bots.
It's not just bots doing the work. About 400 humans are involved in the process as well. Once the bots pick out the groceries, the order gets dropped down a chute to an associate. This is Lindsay, and she's packing the order. Then the items roll down a conveyor belt where more humans are waiting to sort them for delivery. Outside, a fleet of trucks awaits the orders. Frozen and refrigerated items loaded first into this special cold compartment, followed by the rest. Finally, the driver heads out to deliver each order, including ours, to the house we rented.
Hi, delivered by Kroger for the Wynn residents?
That's me.
Right now, the delivery fee is $10, but Kroger says no tips are expected.
Thank you so much.
It's not just robots. Kroger has launched a drone delivery service for customers within a 1-mile radius of this store near Dayton, Ohio.
And right now, customers in that delivery area can go to this website and order a specialized bundle to be delivered right to their yard.
Offerings include a headache bundle with pain medication and a sports drink, s'mores with graham crackers, marshmallows, and chocolate, and movie night with popcorn, soft drinks, and candy. For now, deliveries are free.
All right, I'm going to try it with the cupcake bundle. It comes with unsalted butter, vanilla frosting, and some funfetti cupcake mix. Boom, done. Sounds good.
At the store, an employee gathers my items and packages them in this box specially designed for the drone. The weight limit, 5 pounds. Then it's off to the skies, navigated by a pilot.
There it is. Wow, it is massive. It's here. This is amazing.
It hovers over the yard and...
Bye. The frosting.
I inspect my order.
My cupcake mix. And my butter. Still cold.
From the early, active stages of drone delivery to this high-tech, high-speed fulfillment center, the future of grocery delivery has arrived.
Disgraced movie mogul and convicted rapist Harvey Weinstein is back in court today, this time in Los Angeles, on additional sexual assault charges. He's already serving a 23-year sentence in New York for rape and sexual assault. Weinstein is currently appealing that conviction and sentence. He denies having non-consensual sex. NBC News Now correspondent Simone Boyce joins me now from outside the courthouse in Los Angeles. So, Simone, what charges is Weinstein facing in Los Angeles, and how did he plead?
Good evening, Lindsay. Well, today, Harvey Weinstein pleaded not guilty on all 11 counts of sexual assault that he's being charged with here in California. We actually saw him being wheeled into the courtroom earlier today. He looked pale and tired. He was wearing a face mask as well as brown jail clothes. The entire hearing itself only lasted about 6 minutes, and he was denied bail. Here's what he's up against in the state of California. Now, he's already a convicted rapist based off of a verdict that was handed down last year in New York, but he could he is facing a potential rape conviction here. That is just one of the multiple sexual assault charges that he is facing, in addition to forcible oral copulation, as well as sexual battery by restraint and sexual penetration by use of force. Now, all of these charges stem from alleged encounters that he had with women here in the Los Angeles area, 5 women between 2004 and 2013. And we don't know much about the identity of these accusers, except for one woman who actually spoke out publicly in Harvey Weinstein's New York trial. And here's what she says happened. When she was about 23 years old, she says that Weinstein lured her into a hotel room where he then groped her breast and touched himself before she was able to get away.
Wow, Simone, really hard to hear the allegations as well as those charges. If convicted, what does that mean for Weinstein?
Well, it means that he is certainly looking at the possibility of serving the rest of his life behind bars. So he is already serving that 23-year prison sentence in New York. His legal team has been fighting this extradition from New York to California for medical reasons, essentially claiming that he was not well enough to make the trip. But obviously they lost that battle. He is here in California today. And all of these charges that he is facing in this state, they could total up to 140 years, 140-year sentence. Now, his defense, they are still maintaining his innocence, and they say that they are going to push back against these charges. And actually, they have another court appearance coming up next week, and they tell me that they plan to attempt to dismiss some of these older accusations, Lindsay.
All right, Simone Boyce, thank you so much for your reporting. Raging wildfires are wreaking havoc out west, and the extreme weather is impacting air quality in states across the country. The smoky air making it all the way to Washington, D.C. Here's NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Haake.
Lindsay, I could smell the smoke here 9 floors up on the roof of our bureau this morning. It's all a sign of how connected our climate is, that these fires, which have scorched hundreds of thousands of acres out west, are now causing air quality problems in New York and in Baltimore and right here in Washington.
A fiery Tuesday night sunset lighting up the East Coast, fueled by these orange skies taking hold across the drought-stricken West, as wildfire smoke there drifts across the continent, triggering air quality warnings here.
That is just nasty. That is the haze and the smoke coming down across our area.
Satellite imagery showing the smoke spreading across much of the U.S., all the way to the East Coast. In the West, more than 80 wildfires are burning across 13 states, torching more than 1.3 million acres of land. A raging battle against fire and wind as firefighters work to put out the flames. In Oregon, the bootleg fire is so big it's generating its own weather by producing its own massive cloud, creating dry thunderstorms, lightning, and strong winds that can potentially start more fires. That mega fire, the largest in the U.S. so far this year, has already devoured nearly 400,000 acres of forest and forced thousands to evacuate. In California, the rapidly growing Tamarack fire near Lake Tahoe is threatening hundreds of homes, with many communities in the area under mandatory evacuation orders.
They gave us about 20 minutes notice that it looked like they said the fire was like 5-6 miles away, and about an hour later it was right on us.
The smoky infernos out west creating hazy skies thousands of miles away.
There's a ton of smoke coming across the continent,
stretching from Toronto to Philadelphia.
We definitely can barely see the sky today.
The wildfire is so strong, in New York City, a plume of haze clouded the city skyline. The air quality Tuesday, the worst the city had seen in nearly 15 years.
We shouldn't see those bright red sunsets tonight in New York or in D.C. A front should have moved all of this haze and smoke out by the time it gets dark tonight, but it's still early in the fire season, which means we haven't seen the last of these air quality issues across the country.
Prince Harry is breaking with royal tradition again, this time publishing a tell-all book, something we haven't seen from a senior royal in years. NBC News Now host Joe Fryer has more on the reaction to Harry's memoir.
Buckingham Palace is now bracing for what Prince Harry may reveal in his newly announced memoir.
They're going to have to wait a whole year now without, of course, knowing what's actually going to be in it. So I think the atmosphere is pretty tense.
The book is slated to be published at the end of 2022, casting a shadow over a year that will be monumental for the royal family. The Queen will celebrate 70 years on the throne, her platinum jubilee. Her Majesty and members of the royal family will travel around the Commonwealth to mark the occasion. In June, Prince William will celebrate his 40th birthday, and in August, the world will mark 25 years since Princess Diana's death. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle famously left England, partly, they said, because of a desire to escape the growing UK media attention. That has been followed by a string of high-profile projects and media deals. In a statement released by the publisher, Harry says he is excited for people to read a first-hand account of my life that's accurate and wholly truthful. The memoir will join a long list of royal-related books that have sent shockwaves through the palace. After his abdication, Edward VIII shared his side of the story in a 1951 memoir, a bestseller that made headlines around the world. And in 1992, the royals were thrown into crisis after author Andrew Morton published his biography of Princess Diana, detailing the breakdown of her marriage to Prince Charles. Royal experts, once pointing to the baptism of Harry and Meghan's daughter Lilibet as a chance for the family to reconcile, now acknowledge hope is dimming.
I think everyone was hoping that the birth of their daughter would be an opportunity for reconciliation. But now that we know of these plans for this memoir, I think it does overshadow any reconciliation. Given everything that he's said about the royal family thus far, one can't imagine that they're going to come out particularly well in all of this.
And I think that it's so important for us to recognize the moment of we have an important job to do, and we have an opportunity to be able to open some doors for some young women that may not have realized that this was, in fact, a career path and a choice that they could do.
Just getting the ball rolling, Major League Baseball made history last night off the field when an all-female broadcasting team called the Orioles-Rays game from start to finish for the first time ever. Today, co-host Hoda Kotb has more on the groundbreaking moment.
A group of women breaking barriers in a sport that's looked and sounded one way for more than a century.
Swing and a miss. He got him on the fastballs.
The trailblazing team of veteran female broadcasters setting the tone early on.
Yes, that is 5 women calling this game for the first time in MLB history. I'm excited about it, but for me, it's just another day of work.
For the first time ever, a team of women taking charge of the broadcast before, during, and after Tuesday night's matchup between the Orioles and the Rays. Melanie Newman on play-by-play, Sarah Langs doing the color analysis, Alana Rizzo on the field, and Lauren Gardner and Heidi Watney in the pre- and post-game reports.
The important thing is today that door opens, the door staying open.
We're just getting that ball rolling.
This all-star lineup of ladies hoping to set the tone for future generations.
For young girls and young boys to see this as just commonplace.
There's so many accomplished women that have the resumes that could absolutely do this broadcast. Very happy to be a part of it. We recognize the moment, but above all, it's baseball.
Acknowledging their major moment without missing a beat.
If we can show them that it is possible, then we've done our job.
I could not agree more. Shane McClanahan picks up a strikeout of Ryan Mountcastle, blistering 99.
Absolutely, and that's what we're going to see from him, especially with.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.